elections, nobody cared. These idiots who have murdered my son had more rights than we did. People seem to think I may have moved on and I've got over Stephen's death. I haven't. I was so angry, so angry. The killers are still out on the street. My son had a future, and they've taken that away. And I just feel as if they were laughing at us. There's nobody, I think, who looked to pacify me. Nobody could tell me no. I presume they could, but I wouldn't accept it.
I talked to Rodney Friday night.
It would be the last time Odessa King would ever talk with her son.
I'm going to come down there and see you, Mom. I'm going to see you soon. I love you.
We sat down with Rodney's mother in her Elk Grove home, a home he bought for her.
Rodney loved people.
And he insists Rodney King was a good son. She showed us this painting he bought for her just a few years after the riots. As for his death, when I asked her if she was suspicious...
I don't know, and I haven't heard all the reports, so I basically don't know. I can't say, so I would certainly want to think the best.
She says through it all, their family will come together, rely on their faith, and keep Rodney's memory alive.
Regardless of what nation or what entity, we're human.
My name is William Bell. I'm the father of Sean Elijah Bell.
My name is Valerie Bell. I'm the mother of Sean Elijah Bell.
Now,
every day I sat in that courtroom, and I thought, wow, I think they're going to get time. And when they came back and said, now guilty, I couldn't move. I was numb. That's like, I don't believe this. I even cried and said, can I speak to the judge? Can he just hear me out? And they wouldn't even allow me to speak to the judge. So it was just like the same day my son was shot at on November 25th, 2006. I felt that same pain on April 25th, 2008.
Don't get no better. Every year it seems like it get harder and harder even to deal with a holiday, especially Thanksgiving.
The thing that I always think of the most is thinking of his life.
When we gonna get justice? When are they gonna label us as human beings, not like animals? That's what they should have, shooting us down like animals and putting us aside, like we're no one. We're all human beings, so treat us that way.
The officers in Sean's case were found to have violated NYPD protocols, but they received little to no punishment. While efforting change, the Bells strive to keep their son's memory alive. They're starting a scholarship at his alma mater, Johns Adam High, raising money for the scholarship in part through a book about his life titled Sean Bell, Just 23.
My justice is letting people know that Sean was somebody, and he's always going to be somebody in our heart and the legacy.
So a lot of people talk about Trayvon Martin's story. It's not a story for me. It's a tragedy, because a story has a beginning and an ending. There is no ending for what I carry in my heart.
10 years ago, Sabrina Fulton became the mother of a movement.
We got to see past what's in front of us. We can't give up.
Her son, Trayvon Martin, was just 17 years old when he was gunned down while walking back to his father's house from the convenience.
It's still fresh. The hurt is still fresh. The disappointment and sadness is still fresh. So it seems like it happened recently, and I have to remind myself that it's been 10 years. In D.C.
The Smithsonian.
The Smithsonian. It's on display now. His hoodie is there with a hole in his heart. His pants, his shoes, his cell phone, the drink, the candy, and then his flight suit, because he was interested in becoming an aviation mechanic, and he was interested in flying the planes. I felt that I gave my son to the world. Who am I to keep the clothes?
Talk with Ahmaud Arbery's mother, Wanda Cooper Jones, and the family attorney, Lee Merritt. I started by asking Ms. Cooper Jones to describe her day watching everything unfold in the courtroom.
Today was a good day, I think. Again, I learned new information. Some of the information was shocking. It gave me a sense of closure of the last minutes of my son's life.
A mom's grief a year after her son was shot and killed. A vigil was held tonight to honor Ahmaud Arbery. His mother standing strong, surrounded by family.
1 year of grief for Wanda Cooper Jones, pouring out at a candlelight vigil for her youngest son, Ahmaud Arbery. Friends from Cooper Jones's native town, Waynesboro, mourn with her.
We support her just because being a mother, and we know that's the right thing, what we should do and what God would want us to do too.
And justice will prevail.
Kenya Sullivan Crumbly spoke during the vigil. Many words of prayer shared from family and elected officials, including
would bring our son home to us, knocking on the door with his big smile, coming in the house, sitting down eating dinner with us, going out to lunch, playing with his 1-year-old, almost 2-year-old son, giving him a kiss before he walks out the door. So justice isn't even a word to me. I do want accountability, 100% accountability. Like my sister said, the highest accountability. But even then, when that happens, if that even happens, we're still going to bury our son. We're still never going to be able to see our baby boy that we're never going to have again.
Manslaughter? Y'all see the difference? This is a taser. This is a taser. But no, my nephew was killed with this, a Glock. I don't care what's said, what my nephew may have done, whatever it is. Again, he was ours. He was a good boy. He was ours.
He was my special child. When I was told I couldn't have no more kids, I had him. So that's why I call him my special baby.
He was so full of energy and he loved dressing in costumes. He'll come out wearing a Batman, mask and Superman cape.
7-year-old Jeffrey Taylor died the day after an incident at school.
I feel like my baby just was pushing everything in that little brain of his a 7-year-old, dealing with calling and snaggletooth. You're ugly, you dress funny. He did not want us to go up there and embarrass him because he didn't want to get nobody in trouble. So he didn't say nothing. He was just dealing with it and praying.
Trauma and a lack of mental health care are making the problem worse.
I grew up hearing that if you're experiencing anxiety or depression, you just need to pray harder. I didn't have the right to feel anxiety. I didn't have the right to feel emotional pain. We saw the deaths of George Floyd and Ahmaud Arbery and Breonna Taylor. And for Black and brown kids that see this over time, that starts to weigh on anyone.
His parents say the weight of it all was just too much for Jeffrey.
Despite a grand jury recommendation for an indictment, no charges were brought against the officer who killed her son. And Benjamin says she's not alone.
Among us mothers here in Georgia, every last one of our cases are to a point where we'll get all the way to the court system, but we will have the prosecutor, along with the judges, along with the state and federal, they all side with the police officers.
At Tuesday's rally, the group said they were sick and tired of officers not being held accountable, and they backed legislation introduced by Congressman Hank Johnson.
Congressman has proposed a few bills, and he's proposed the police accountability bill, the grand jury reform bill, and then he also has a bill for a cooling off period. So those are some of the bills that he's focusing on to make sure that police are held accountable.
When they said it was Marcus, I couldn't believe it. No, because everybody loved him.
As gun violence continues tightening its grip on our city, one victim.
He had empathy, compassion for everybody.
At a church clothing and food drive, Diane Jones still spending her time giving back to those in need.
When we confirmed it was him, my heart dropped.
Even days after experiencing her own unimaginable loss.
And everybody thinking, okay, well, you're strong, you're here today. It's not because of me. God is with me.
Her life is rooted in faith, and she says her son Marcus's was too.
I'm not just saying this because he's my son. Whoever took him, they took an angel.
Among more than a dozen shootings in Baltimore this weekend, 7 of them deadly. Diane's son Marcus was found here in Holland's Market with a gunshot wound to the head late Saturday night. He was only 34 years old.
Because in the head, that's personal. I don't know why somebody wanted to do it. I don't know.
Michael had the biggest heart. And he helped so many people, so many of his friends. He was very peer-oriented. His mentor talked about that a lot with me the other night when we talked on the phone. He was not a conformist child, never has been. He kind of played by his own rules and liked to walk to the beat of his own drum. I have 5 and he's my middle child. And he had this smile that as soon as he smiled, everybody, you just couldn't help but smile back at him. He was funny, and he was always trying to make it the light of any situation, to always making people laugh. That was his thing. He always liked making people laugh.
What happened that night?
I don't know. I was in Florida. I just know that my daughter called me. My youngest called me, and she was worried about Michael, and I said, okay, let me find out what's going on with him. I don't know, but let me see. So I called his stepmom, and she was like, Glenn called me and said she thinks he's been shot.
I can't breathe. I think you get up. I'm not moving without him. I'm not moving without him. Just let me get him. Let me get him.
Woman I've ever met to find out if that terrible pain had eased, even a little.
You know, there's a proverb that says, time's a great healer.
4 years old. Do you ever sit back and close your eyes and think what he would look like now, what he'd be like, what he'd be doing, where he'd be?
Gordon, I don't have to close my eyes. I see him all the time. Most recently, I was at a graduation and I saw a young man who looks like him, and the tears rolled down. And he acknowledged me, and that made it worse. And so I see him, his spirit living on in many ways in so many young men. I don't have to close my eyes. I think about him all the time.
Do you talk to him?
I just sometimes ask, am I doing okay for you, son? I hope what I'm doing is pleasing to you. So I do talk to him.